Folks are back. This is Steve Sanson and Andre Haynes with another episode of Veterans in Politics. Today we have Suzan Baucum, former Las Vegas Justice of the Peace. But before we get to Judge Baucum, Andre, do you have any rants?
I do. This weather, Steve.
It's hot, ain't it?
125 degrees. I was driving to Las Vegas today from Southern California. I was on the 58 freeway
58.
using my AC. Coming from Palmdale.
Okay.
And when I hit the 15 and it hit 120, I had to turn it off. So I drove from 58 and 15 all the way to here with no AC.
Wow.
Well, you know, your car overheat.
With no AC.
No AC. But the good thing is,
Oh, I couldn't do it.
the whole way here, there were cars on the side that overheated and broke down. But at the gym, I do the steam room and the sauna, so I was okay.
Were you with anybody?
Yeah, I was with Patsy. You know, and
she didn't mind the no AC?
you know what? She was quiet. The heat made her quiet, so I'm gonna start keeping the heat on. Uh-oh, Patsy can watch this, huh?
You better be nice, Andre.
Well, I have no rants today. I just want to get right to the guests.
Got somebody special here with us.
That's right. Judge Baucum, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Steve. How are you?
Good, good. Tell us about you.
What do you want to know?
Whatever you want to tell me. You start at birth and we go all the way up to where you are right now, 27, 28.
Yeah, 27 or 28, something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we go right to that.
No, I was born and raised here in Las Vegas. I
Okay.
went through the public school system.
You were born here?
Yes, I was. You
I didn't know that. And all the years we've known each other.
E.W. Griffith, Hyde Park,
Oh,
Western
wow.
High School.
Okay. All right.
You know, watched this town grow from a little itty bitty thing to what it is now.
Okay. Did you, when you were going through school system, did you ever thought you would be a judge?
Yeah, it was always in the back of my mind.
Okay. Okay. Please continue.
My great-grandfather was a justice of the peace in Arkansas
Okay.
a very long time ago. My mom's dad, or
Okay.
my mom's grandfather. Yes.
Okay. Wow.
So, and then I went to college in St. Paul, Minnesota, McAllister College.
Cold. You went from hot to cold.
Right.
That's
Snow.
right, because you need to know your limitations. If the weather's cold and miserable, you'll study. If you're somewhere sunny and there's a beach, you might rethink that, right?
That's right. That's right. Okay.
And then I went to law school at the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho.
Okay.
Keep going.
Please keep going.
So from law school, I worked with a couple of firms in Reno, Nevada. I came back to Las Vegas to run a foundation for the Supreme Court of Nevada, the Nevada Law Foundation. We provided legal services access to justice for abused women and children, senior citizens, and the disadvantaged members of the society statewide.
Okay.
It was a great program. And then I decided it was time to take access to justice to a different level.
Okay.
So in 2010, I ran for Las Vegas Justice Court Department 13 and was reelected in 2016. I served for 12 years.
That's when
On
we
the
first
bench.
met, right?
Yeah, it was about then. Yeah, I think it was about then.
Wow. So I've known you what? 10,
14 maybe.
14 years. That's a long time.
You're
I
not-
need to come over for a Thanksgiving meal or something. Christmas,
You're not
birthday.
as scary as
And
you
she
used to
still
be.
looks the same youthful she did 14
I know
years
she
ago.
hasn't.
Now
she
you look
hasn't
older.
aged. I
You've aged.
haven't looked older.
You've aged.
I have not aged.
You've aged.
Everybody told me I look like I'm in my
You've
20s.
aged.
What are you
There's a
talking
poll
about?
on Facebook that said that.
There is no poll on Facebook.
Oh, you didn't know that Andre was setting that up before he got here?
No, I did not.
Oh,
You knew about it?
oh.
And you didn't tell me?
I can't reveal all my sources.
Okay. So you went to the Justice of the Peace.
I did.
Okay. Tell us about that.
So for 12 years, I served on the court as in Las Vegas Justice Court.
Okay.
The first year I did a civil calendar.
Okay.
For the next 10, I presided over the DUI court.
Okay.
And
How was that?
Busy. It was very, very busy.
You don't have to worry about me or Andre and DUI because we don't drink.
Oh, that's great. That's good news because you never want to drink.
We might be in a different court, maybe assault and battery court, but never a
Nasty,
DUI
nasty.
court.
No. And then I also did a criminal calendar. I served
Okay.
as a chief judge while I was on the court.
How long were you chief judge for?
A year.
A year.
I think I did 1 year.
Were you chief judge a few times or just that one?
The one time. The
Okay.
one time.
Okay.
So
And how was that?
it's a lot of work,
Okay.
trying to make everybody happy, and you can't make everybody happy.
So
Sometimes you have to make hard decisions that people don't like.
So Judge Baucum, when you were first on the bench, how many departments were there?
14.
Oh, there were 14 back in 10 too?
In 2010, they added 2 new departments, Department 13 and Department 14.
Okay.
And I ran for 13, and Conrad Hafen ran for 14 and was elected in 14.
I remember Conrad. I don't think Conrad is in the state anymore.
No, he's living in Utah.
Yeah.
He works for one of the prosecutor's offices somewhere in Utah.
Yeah. All right. And continue from there.
So then, after the 22 election, I went to work for the district attorney's office, and I have been there since January of 23 in the Juvenile Child Welfare Division.
Okay.
And that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half.
Wow. Now, earlier you had mentioned the nonprofit program
Yes.
with the Supreme Court you were involved with and helping everyone get access to justice. When you were elected to the bench in Justice Court and some of the defendants came in front of you, I want to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to assume some of those defendants you might have noticed didn't have access to justice or information. I won't say justice, but information. What was that like being on the other side of the bench and seeing people come in front of you who were just like the ones you helped through the program with the Supreme Court?
So, Las Vegas Justice Court is really the people's court. It's where individuals come the first time for maybe a traffic ticket, a DUI, a domestic battery, trespassing, misdemeanor crimes. And for a lot of them, it's the first time they've ever been in a court system. And it's scary, right? We have veterans come in. A lot of times, when you would get the booking report, it would be stamped on there that the individual before you was a veteran. And we also had signs in the courtroom that if you are a veteran, please identify yourself. So the judge would then know how to help the veterans in the veterans programs, maybe to divert them to the Veterans Treatment Court program if they were, the right candidate. But you just kind of have to be able to read the room. You have to take more time with some individuals than you do with others. Some are very volatile, nervous, and you can see that. And I think that you need to speak with them in a little softer tone of voice, take a little more time with them, explain things a little more fully so they understand it. And so I always try to treat people with dignity and respect the same way that I would like to be treated by somebody else.
That's cool. And I like that because there have been judges, including justices of the peace, who, before being elected, they were only in private practice. And they didn't have the chance, like you did, to advocate for and to help people and to have, to develop empathy and patience and things like that. And I think it's important for a judge to have that, but a lot of them have not. But that's great that you did.
I think patience, you hit on that. Patience is very important in the court system because people don't understand. They don't understand the ramifications. There are a lot of individuals that come before the court with mental health diagnoses, drug abuse, substance abuse issues, and they're just having a difficult time navigating it. And you have to make sure that if they need a public defender, one gets appointed for them, or if they have private counsel. But again, you just have to take the time with each person that comes before the court to make sure that they understand every aspect from the first moment they walk in until they walk out.
That's good.
What specialty courts did you oversee when you were on the bench?
So, the
And why?
DUI court was considered a specialty court because those were the only matters that were heard. We had the moderate offender program with the Veterans Treatment Court, some other ones. I helped out in the moderate offender court. I helped out in the community resource center. They just started in the last year and a half, the resort corridor court. But
Is there anything is there any laws out there that when you're on the bench and you're saying to yourself, really, I got to enforce this thing? Is there any laws you say, well, we need to get rid of? Or is there any laws you would say that maybe we should adapt to the courts?
No, I don't think that there are any laws that I can, bring to your attention right now per se. But I can tell you that we need more services for mental health because we don't have enough. We just don't have enough. There are not enough treatment programs. It's one of the most underserved areas in our community is someone's mental health. They don't get the services they need. And whether that is started, from the time they were young or substance abuse led to it, or they were, in the armed forces and they come back with PTSD and everything else, and it's just trying to identify services. And I would think that the legislature would really be trying to find additional money to provide better mental health services, not only in the Las Vegas community, but in the entire state of Nevada. So important.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Please continue. Sorry.
Oh, I'm finished.
Oh. So as a justice of the peace, you could lock somebody up for 6 months, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever walked through the facility over at Clark County Detention Center?
I have. I have.
Yeah. And what was your experience like when you did that?
Well, the first time that I went into it was before the new detention center was built, but it was where, the old jail, we used to back in the day, would do field trips.
Okay.
And you'd go through the jail and, they'd close the doors and lock you up. And so you really got kind of a feel for that. The booking process takes a lot of time. There are some great people in Las Vegas Justice Court that work, on the front line with all of those individuals that come in. You just have to, it's like a joint task force, I guess. Everybody has to do their part, Steve. Everybody needs to do their part.
Absolutely. What's your opinion on bail?
So as you know, several years ago, bail reform was a hot topic, and bail reform is always a hot topic, right? Because is cash bail, is that fair? Is it fair to have the same amount of bail for, one person whose income level is at the poverty line versus somebody that's making millions of dollars a year? But the Nevada Pretrial Risk Assessment Tool was instituted, which has been very, very helpful. It gets individuals in front of a judge a lot faster than it used to in the old days. It also gives judges like a little cheat sheet of how many times a person's been arrested, what their prior history is, if they have misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors, felony convictions. And so it gives you a snapshot of what their prior history is like. And of course, everybody wants the community to be safe. Yes. And it's not always easy making a decision where bail is concerned, because you have to take all of the factors into consideration, prior criminal history, finances of the individual, the totality of the circumstances. And it needs to be fair, but it also needs to, past history, I think, is important to take a look at that, because how many times do you let somebody OR somebody for them to just turn around and they're right back in the next day or 48 hours later? So a lot of that is where I think diversion programs, mental health services, and some of those other programs that we really need really come into play.
So that brings me to my other question. How do you feel about the repeat offenders court?
So I think that if somebody can get help, if somebody can be diverted early on, I think that's really important. I think that, there are a lot of things, whether it's a first-time domestic violence and they complete all of their requirements, it gets reduced or it gets dismissed. Sometimes that works out really well and people learn the first time. And for others, it doesn't happen at all. And they're back 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times for the same thing.
It's like a revolving door.
It's a revolving door. It can be. It can be. And that's where treatment comes in. And that's where it's identifying services for each individual. Because what works for one person, a treatment program for one person might not work for the next person. So it's identifying it early on, trying to get each individual with the right services as early as possible. I think we could turn it around.
So when you bond people over for district court, right? What do you look for as a justice of the peace to say that there's sufficient evidence that this case should go up to district court?
So the prosecutor obviously has to put on their case in chief. They have to prove, enough to bind it up to the next level. If they can't prove their case, it's dismissed.
Okay. You've been to judicial college, correct?
I have.
How many times?
Once.
Just the one time?
One time.
Oh. Figure they'll send you for a refresher course or something, no?
Well, there's always, like lawyers, judges, real estate professionals, everybody has some type of doctor's continuing education program.
CLE courses.
Correct. And so attorneys have to do a certain number of hours every single year.
Okay.
Which includes substance abuse, ethics, general.
Okay. So you also, as a justice of the peace, you also hear domestic violence cases.
So not all justices of the peace. There's a specific domestic violence court. Okay. So there was, right now there are currently 2 judges in justice court that preside over the domestic violence court.
Who are they?
One is Noreen DeMonte, Judge DeMonte.
Okay.
And I don't know who's presiding over the other one right now.
Okay. Because I was going to ask you, what would you look for in a domestic violence case? Well, hypothetically, what would you look for in a domestic violence case?
Well, Steve, what I think most people don't understand is domestic violence. There are a lot of different ways that domestic violence occurs.
Right.
It can be physical. It can be a touching, a scratch, a slap. It can be financial. It can be sexual. It can be emotional. It also affects children. So if a child is in the house when the domestic violence occurs, that also can have long-term effects on the children. So,
Andre?
Well, I don't know. It could be financial. You were on the bench during COVID, correct? How has that impacted the way hearings are held and the way the court does business today?
So COVID, as everybody knows, was really an interesting time. And none of the court systems were really set up to address that. But very quickly, all of the courts were able to put hearings in place so people could, appear virtually, whether that was on Zoom or Blue Jeans or, some other type of media. And it really did kind of change the whole dynamics. I mean, I like in-person court. I'm a big proponent of that. I think it's easier to read people if they're standing in front of you. It's easier to identify if something else is going on with them, as opposed to them appearing virtually. It used to be somebody could appear virtually if they, or via telephone or whatnot, if they lived more than 60 miles out of the jurisdiction. And COVID changed all of that. But from all of the courts, from municipal court all the way up to the Supreme Court, it's made access to justice a lot easier for a lot of individuals.
Did that, being able to use Blue Jeans, Zoom, or make a telephonic appearance, did that reduce the amount of time that hearings required? And did it maybe reduce the amount of fees that were incurred staff-wise?
So I don't think that it reduced the amount of time because, whenever you have technology, it's not always 100%, What doesn't work 100% all the time. I mean, even now being in the DA's office, a lot of individuals appear virtually and they get locked out, they get dropped, their sound isn't working, they have to log in and out. So that does put a strain or can put a strain on the court system, the court clerks, who then have to bring everybody into the rooms, take them from a holding room into another area, call them on the phone, try to reconnect them. So there are some definitely benefits, but there are also some burdens that I don't think that people really thought might occur as a result of that. It's put a lot more work on the court staff.
I understand that. Several years ago, we had the bill passed regarding traffic infractions, where how did it change? The defendant has to pay the bail first in order, if they want to dispute the infraction.
So they changed the traffic, some of the traffic, and it used to be everything was from a speeding was a misdemeanor all the way up, from 0 points, 1 point, 8 points, depending on what the charge was. And in most states, anything 8 points or less, like an 8-point ticket would be more like a reckless driving or something of that nature. Running a red light's probably a 4-point citation, failing to maintain a travel lane. So all of those became civil infractions. So instead of you don't pay your fine, you don't do your traffic school, a bench warrant issued, you go to jail. Now it's a civil citation, and then it could be a civil contempt of court more as opposed to a jail type sentence.
Is there any impact if the person has a driver's license? Is there any impact as far as demerits or anything like that?
So there are still demerits, and I don't really know what that is. I know, that a reckless driving is 8 points, a DUI is a little bit higher, but some of the other ones like speeding 1 to 10 miles over, 20 plus, I don't know how that has been affected in the demerit system, honestly.
Do you feel safe when you go to the courthouse?
I do.
And as a judge, do you think that safety needs to be improved somehow or somewhere? Because I know they change a lot of the requirements since the last guy flew over the bench.
Yeah, Judge Holthus, yes.
Yes. I know they're adding 2 marshals, depends if it was different cases, violent cases, they're putting additional marshals in there.
And so I think for the most part, I believe that people feel safe in the court system. Most of the marshals are really good. They're really on it. I never felt unsafe in 12 years in the courtroom, never ever. I always had the best marshal ever. If we had cases that were identified that might be a little more volatile or high-powered, then they usually would bring in an additional, support system, and sometimes it's necessary, especially, I think in district court where somebody can be getting sentenced to, life imprisonment, people, emotions run high, and not just for the defendant, but for the families of the defendants, and everybody needs to be aware in the courtroom.
So as a justice of the peace, you have 3 people assigned to you, right? You have a law clerk, you have a JEA, and you have a marshal.
Well, you don't have a law clerk.
You don't have a law clerk.
No, so in district court judges, appellate in the Supreme Court, they all each have their own law clerk. Okay. In Las Vegas Justice Court, there are law clerks that work for the court. The civil judges kind of have one that's assigned to them, because that caseload is just really ridiculously high. And then there are a couple of other clerks that assist the other judges as needed. But it's not as though you get your own law clerk.
You get your own JEA.
You get your
judicial
own
executive assistant.
You get your own judicial executive assistant. You have a marshal.
Your own marshal.
Your own marshal. And then you usually hire a court reporter if you have a criminal calendar.
What do you look for in those 2 individuals, the JEA and the marshal, as a judge?
So I want somebody that's honest, that's obviously intelligent, that understands the court system, you need somebody that can really manage and do it all, because they have their identified roles, and then they also have to be supportive. And the JEAs are great. I mean, my first JEA, I had her for about 10 years.
So nobody runs off and leaves you.
No. She was with me for 10 years. She worked for Judge Dahl in North Las Vegas prior to me. And Judge Dahl called me and he said, if you get elected, he said, will you take Joey? And I said, of course I'll take Joey, because I had pro tem'd for Judge Dahl for, quite a while in North Las Vegas. And so I was familiar with her, and it was a great fit. Okay. But then she had her 30 years in with the county, and, she was offered a great buyout, and so she retired. So then my second JEA, Ryan, had actually worked for me previously at the foundation that I was the director of for a long time. And he's now with Judge Albertson, Anna Albertson. So he went from me to her.
And your marshal?
And my marshal.
That's the guy that's going to take the bullet for you, right?
That's the guy that's going to take the bullet for you if need be. Yes. And you have to listen to your marshal. And if they tell you to do something, you need to pay attention. You can't get argumentative with them, because lives are at stake. And it's not just, they're in charge of the security of the whole courtroom, obviously for the judge, but also for the security of the courtroom itself. And they have to make sure that things are running smoothly. And so the first marshal I had, he stayed, I think he was with me about 2 years, and then he went to Henderson Corrections because he could make a lot more money, and he had children and needed to beef up his income a little bit. And then I got Joe, and Joe was great. Joe was with Judge Bixler for a long time. Judge Bixler was getting ready to retire out of district court, and so I was lucky I was able to snag Joe, and it was a great fit. He was just very good.
You're campaigning now.
Am
I? Are you?
Am I?
Are you
I heard your plans.
now?
But should you be elected, what are you looking to do?
She didn't say are you running for something?
Well, Steve.
She's smiling.
Andre, I always try to smile, right?
We're going to give an exclusive.
All right. So yes, Steve, I'm going to announce right here today with you
VIP,
and
you heard it first.
Andre Haynes from the Armed Forces Chamber of Commerce. You're hearing it first, that yes, I will be filing to run for Las Vegas Justice Court Department 4, July 24. Yeah, Cuatro.
So you went from 13 to 4.
13 to 4.
Is that like a step up?
Steve,
it was a lower number, that's why.
It's a lower number.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm very excited.
Thank you for sharing it here first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And why would you want to go back to the court system?
So I've been asked quite frequently over the last year and a half to get back on the bench. Would I consider it? Will I do it? And it had to be the right race. And my passion lies in Las Vegas Justice Court, as opposed to district court or one of the higher courts. It's the people's court. It's where you can still make a difference in somebody's life. It's where you can still have the opportunity to turn it around. I think that's where I do my best work. I love Las Vegas Justice Court, and I want to be back on the bench. And so I'm going to go for it.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
How important is judicial temperament?
I think judicial temperament is very important. You have to stay, to use my phrase of my mom's, calm, cool, and collected at all times. You have to keep a neutral face on. You can't go, yeah, you have to stay neutral. You can't react. There are times that you want to laugh and you just can't, you can't do it.
You're bringing this before me.
There are times that you might want to get, that you're emotional, and because emotions run high and you see people hurting, and, that strikes a chord with you, and you have to take a breath. But judicial temperament is very, very important. And I think that temperament also comes with age. I think it's...
You're young buck, so...
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve. But You want somebody with experience. You need somebody with experience
Wisdom.
and wisdom. Because I think that when you have more life experience, you're able to relate more to the individuals that come before you in the court.
I'm going to use, and hopefully I'm not using the wrong words. I want to use the words unfinished business. If you had any unfinished business as a justice of peace that you wanted to implement in the courtroom or back on the administrative side in chambers, what would that be?
I think, Andre, it's just to continue to make sure that all Nevadans have access to justice, equal, fair access to justice across the board. We need to identify services. We need to get people help so they don't continually come back before the court system. And that's so important.
Wow. Well, I feel good that she's gone back on the bench. How do you feel?
And I really like how you shared at the beginning of the conversation, being director of the nonprofit program with the Supreme Court, advocating for people to not only receive justice, but vital information that pertains. And then going to the bench, it shows your heart and your passion. It's not just a campaign gimmick like some people might do.
You're right. It's not just a job. I mean, born and raised here. My parents made it very clear, that you only get out of a community what you put into a community. So at a very early age, I started doing community service. My children did a lot of community service. It was required through the school that they went to from pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. But it's family, it's community, you only get what you get. You can't just expect all the time because you are not going to get everything you want. You have to give back. And whether that's volunteering, in schools, whether it's doing reading week in schools, which I do. I still do a lot of outreach to kids, middle schools through UNLV on not driving under the influence. That's still where my passion is. And I do a lot with Rebel Athletics. I do a lot in our school system. And I just have more to give. I have more to give the community.
I like that. That's important. Just the other day, I was talking to my wife. We were talking about healthcare. And we're talking about nurses, physicians, and we're making a comparison how some people do the job for the money, for the benefits, because they're in a financial situation versus some people who they've done a form of that their whole life and they're doing it because they actually care. And listening to your background, your experience, where you started, where you are now, you can definitely tell that you care.
I do care. And it's never, if it was just about the money, I'd be working at some high-powered law firm, right? I mean, in public service, you have great benefits. You make a decent wage, but it's not, you don't go into public service for the money. You don't go to work for the county or the state for the money. You go to work for the county because you want to serve the people. And that's what I want to continue to do, is serve the people of the state of Nevada and our community.
Andre, you have anything else for Judge Baucum?
Not a question, but a comment. I'm listening, reading your body language. I like your humility.
Thank you.
And I like your genuineness. Because I've talked to elected officials, people seeking to be elected, and sometimes it's an ego trip. Sometimes it's a power trip, and that's not what you're giving off here.
You have to set that ego aside. It's not a power trip. It's not about you. It's about the people you serve, and that's what everybody needs to understand.
Oh, by the way, Jonathan Cooper, we just saw him, and he said to say hi for him. He's running for North Las Vegas and one of our endorsed candidates, actually, for the Joint Veterans. And he sends his regards to you, and I just wanted to make it public.
Jonathan Cooper is a great guy. He was on my track as a DA, and then he switched over to be a public defender on the defense side, and he was also on one of my tracks as public defender, and he's just the nicest, smartest young man. I always enjoyed working. Man. He is young, but he's just a great and wonderful attorney. He's currently serving as a hearing master in the district court, and he's just wonderful. And
I'm sure he'll like to hear that.
I tell him that every time I see him.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to ask Judge Baucum if she had anything else that we didn't cover.
I need to go. Not yet. What advice would you have for a paralegal, a legal secretary, an attorney fresh out of law school who is considering at some point becoming a justice of peace, and they haven't made up their mind, or they don't know what to expect? What advice would you have for that person?
Well, you talked about paralegals, secretaries. All of those jobs are so important in the legal community, because as a judge, you don't do it by yourself. You have to have your court clerks, the law clerks, and the entire court system is your support system. You don't do it alone. You're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with. So get the experience, go to law school. Most lawyers go, oh, why would you want to go to law school? And I'm like, no, go to law school because it opens up so many doors. You don't have to practice law, but it gives you an insight that can help you no matter what career choice you make going forward. But learn about the law, learn about your community, know where your passion is, and know where you can be the most effective. You have to know yourself before you can serve the community.
Judge Baucum, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to?
Yeah, Steve, actually, I want you to tell me about this book of yours that's coming out.
Yes.
Well, I wrote a book because, I got involved in the family court, and we did protesting, and we did court observing, and I've had hundreds of family litigants come on the show. I've had family attorneys. I had family court judges come on the show and talk about the family court system. And 65% of the family court is pro se litigants. So you got regular voters that can't afford an attorney or don't want to get an attorney, or rather put that money towards their children instead of putting the money towards an attorney. So I decided to write a book, how to navigate through the family court system. It's, I believe it's 55 chapters. It's an A to Z, and hopefully it'll help a lot of litigants out how to maneuver through the family court system. And I'm not an attorney, so there you go. But
so you have one for the family court system. Are you going to do one now for the regular district court, the justice court, the municipal court, the appellate court, and the Supreme Court, so everybody understands how to navigate through the entire court system?
Well, let me just put it to you like this, okay? So I've been looking at the family court system since 2016, really looking at it and exposing the injustice that's in there. There's a lot of very good family court judges in there, and there's some that comes off the ranch. So it took me a year to actually sit down and write the book. Now, if I'm going to do all that other stuff, man, that's going to
give you another job.
That's going to put
another
me
8 years.
I'm going to be in my 60s or something.
It's over the hill. Is that what you're thinking? If you're in your 60s, you're over the hill.
I figured that in the other courts, civil criminal, they do an excellent job compared to the family court division. Truthfully, I have to say. So it's not so much of I need to help those folks out because they're doing a good job over there. But the family court system needed some real help and guidance, and I just have to help those litigants out. The other ones I send the civil criminal, they get the public defender's office. They got the pro bono office. They assign attorneys to them. So they got all the resources over there. But the family court system is kind of lagging. It doesn't have all those resources compared to the other courts. So that's why I went for the underdog and decided to help them out. Make sense?
That makes sense.
Judge Baucum, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show.
And it's always a pleasure to be here. So thank you for the invitation. And it's always great to see you, Commander.
Likewise, thank you.
And Andre, thank you for coming on the very last minute. But Judge Baucum, please look into the camera. And since now you're going to be a candidate, yay, Hercules.
You heard it here first.
Hercules. Department 4, Las Vegas Justice of the Peace. Please look in the camera and tell folks why they should return you back to the bench.
I'm Suzan Baucum.
And your point of contact.
I'm Suzan Baucum, and I am running for Las Vegas Justice Court, Department 4. We'll be filing the last week of July for a winner-takes-all November 5th in the general election. I have the experience, the temperament. I know this community. I was born and raised here. I've raised my family here. And I don't think there's any other candidate better suited to be on the Las Vegas Justice Court than me. I won't have a learning curve. I can take the bench on day one and get to work. I can be contacted at SuzanBaucum@gmail.com, SuzanBaucum.com, Suzan Baucum for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My cell number is out for the world to see. All you have to do is know how to spell my name, and you can get a hold of me.
Well, thank you, Judge Baucum.
Thank you. It's been a
Thank you,
pleasure
Andre
to be
Haynes.
here. Thank
Folks,
you.
that's Suzan Baucum, former Las Vegas Justice of the Peace and candidate for Las Vegas Justice of the Peace Department 4. We urge everybody to educate yourself on this judge, and you will find out that she's fabulous. And I don't even know why she took a break to come off the bench, but she did. But going back on the bench, and we'll love to see her back on the bench. This is Steve Sampson, Andre Haynes with Veterans in Politics. Until next time.